Hello, everyone. How are we doing? I see Kojoche on the call. I see Nyako Scrippy. I see Juliana, iPhone XR. Interesting. Uh, Bethlehem. Hope I got the name right. Kojojan. And I see an 88967681947 on the call. I hope we are all doing well. Welcome to Data Sync. This is our second session on Microsoft Excel. This is our masterclass guiding you from getting data into building an interactive dashboard. I am going to hand over to our instructor for today, Michael Nyako. He's going to be taking us through our masterclass. All right, so Michael, if you are ready, please take it away.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Good afternoon, and you're all welcome once again. Please, I hope I can be heard.
Yeah, Michael, we can hear you.
Okay, so at the end of this class, we should have built a dashboard in Excel. That's our focus for this class. But then we first want to try and understand what a dashboard is in the first place. So just a second. Okay. So we're going to be building a dashboard in Microsoft Excel. And then for the outline, we'll understand the dashboard, the definition of a dashboard, the purpose. We'll look at some examples. And then we'll look at what I've termed as the building blocks of a dashboard, which are data and visuals. And then we'll have a hands-on session where we'll actually build the dashboard from scratch. We'll look at some guiding principles, what to do and what not to do when building a dashboard. And then any questions and answers will follow. Please feel free to cut in at any point with any questions you might have. You can type it in the chat window or you can raise your hand. Thank you. Okay, so diving straight in. When we mention the word dashboard, what comes to mind? Well, for me, what comes to mind is the car's dashboard, which displays some metrics such as the fuel gauge, the engine temperature, the mileage, the speed at which you are going. And these metrics help the one driving, help the owner of the car on a day-to-day basis. Imagine having to move a car when you do not know the fuel level. That's a very, very risky move. Or you you are exceeding the a limit according to a certain zone. Maybe the speed is 80 kilometers per hour. You don't have a speedometer and you're at 140. That's not going to help you. Or your engine temperature, you have no metric for that on your dashboard. You are at the risk of overheating. So these are some of the signals that the dashboard communicates to the driver, to the viewer. And so based on that, we are able to identify why we need a dashboard, and we say it's for communication. A message has to be sent across. I need to know my fuel level. I need to know the engine temperature. I need to know the speed at which I'm going at any point in time. And that's communication. And then under the forms of communication, we have written communication that has to do with reports, emails, anything written. We have visual communication, which employs the use of the eye. So you perceive something and then a message is communicated. So you see a speed, the sign that talks about the speed ramp, and then you know that there's a speed ramp, you're approaching a speed ramp. We have verbal, which has to do with either phone calls, face-to-face conversation, verbal speaking, and then non-verbal, which has to do with postures, eye contact, gestures, and all that. But then we realize that in a dashboard, the medium of communication that is employed is visual communication. And we understand why visual communication. So first of all, visual communication is defined as the use of visual elements to convey information. So the use of visual elements to convey information. And some of these visual elements are pictures, shapes, infographics, videos, charts, and graphs. These are all elements, visual elements that we can use to communicate. I see a picture, I see a flyer telling me something, and no one spoke to me. There was no verbal communication, there was no non-verbal, but then I'm able to get a message that had to be sent across. And then one of the pros of visual communication, one of the reasons why visual communication is beneficial is that it's easier and faster to digest, especially compared to written communication in a given context. So in a case where I have to read one page of a document to be able to know something, and then in that same information on that one page can represent it using one picture. It's easier and faster to digest that one picture than having to read several lines of text. And so based on that, visual communication is a way to get someone hooked onto your message. But one con of visual communication is it's easy to get carried away. And so picking the ideal format is tricky. Picking the ideal format is tricky, and we'll get to understand more of that because one reason is that visuals need to mutually support each other and represent the narrative. For example, in the car dashboard instance, there are so many bolts and nuts in the engine, in several components in the engine, and each one of them is important. Losing one could cause harm to a particular part of the vehicle or even generally the vehicle as a whole. And so you need to know all of this at every point in time. But this information cannot be represented on the dashboard, and we don't see it being represented on the dashboard. Now imagine okay, about mutually supporting each other. Imagine you have a light flashing indicating that there's something wrong with one of your doors. And then right by that flashing light, you have an indicator showing that two or more of your doors are open. The flashing lights made you take a look at something, and then which the indicator that showed you that two of your doors are open complemented that. And so they represented a narrative. And so we'll get to understand this more when we talk about dashboards in the business context, about how picking the ideal format is tricky, can be tricky, and then visuals need to mutually support each other and represent a narrative. A story has to be told. So based on this, how can we define a dashboard in the business context? According to Microsoft, a dashboard is a single page, often called a canvas. So it is a canvas that tells a story through visualizations. Let's note that it's a single page. And then dashboards are a way to monitor your business and see all your most important metrics at a glance. And this is possible because it's a single page. When it becomes multiple pages, it's no longer a glance. You have to take some time to go through. So because it's limited to one page, a well-designed dashboard contains only the highlights of that story, which is just emphasizing the previous point that talks about the most important metrics. So this is how we can define a dashboard in a business context. Some metrics have to be displayed. And so we have a canvas, a single page to tell the story through visualizations. Remember, we've spoken about visual communication. So there are so many computer programs you can use to create a dashboard. There's Tableau, Power BI, there's so many. But then what we are looking at today is Excel. And these are two examples of dashboards built using Microsoft Excel. Yes, the same Microsoft Excel we know. So the first one is talking about some international movies. So we have some visuals here. We have a bar chart talking about giving us information about the directors. We have another one here talking about the movies, individual, the specific movies, highest grossing movies. We have some countries here based on revenue. So we have USA leading. We see all that there. We have a donut chart, which is really a nicer, if I should call it that way, a nicer version of a pie chart, just showing us proportions. We have another dashboard here that's talking about global financial trends by country. And then we realize that we have some elements that are not really charts, but then they find themselves here. They remember the definition of a dashboard that you can have visual elements. The visual elements are graphs, charts, and any other shape and all that. So all these are visual elements. The Facebook icon here is a visual element that straight away. I didn't even have to read the heading. I don't know if you can see it, but it reads social media followers. I just saw Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and I realized that it's talking about social media. So that's confirms the point that it is easier and faster to digest. So we've seen some examples of dashboards, and then now let's go into what I term as the building blocks of dashboards, which are data and visuals. Now, from what do we build a dashboard? Yes, we know how a dashboard looks now. We know what it's supposed to look like or how we would want it to look. But from what? We can't build it out of nothing. So we need data. Data can be ranging from uh, one domain to another. It ranges throughout several different domains, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's the movie industry, sales, e-commerce, all of that. It just has to be data. And then from this data, you can build visuals. Now, the visuals here I'm referring to are the charts, the graphs. You can talk about the pie chart. You can talk about the line graph, the scatter plot, all those things are the visuals that can be built from data. So really, this is the workflow. You have your data. From your data, you're able to create some visuals. And then from the visuals, you have a dashboard. And so these two are the golden ones, objectives and then audience, are some guiding principles whenever you're building a dashboard. At the end of the session, we'll talk about some other guiding principles. That's the best practices and then the common mistakes. But then these two, before we get to our hands-on session, these two are ones I want us to take a look at because it will guide us in building a dashboard. So the first thing we have to know is that a dashboard cannot house all information about a subject. Just like in the example of a car, you can't put every information about a car on the dashboard. You can't put the horsepower and all that on the dashboard. Therefore, clear objectives must be set. If we can't put everything on the dashboard, then what has to be on the dashboard? Which is a not so simple question to answer. And so you need to set clear objectives. We'll understand more of that as we start building. And then on the topic of knowing your audience, with any given data set, different dashboards may be prepared based on the recipient. What this means is that if, let's say I'm looking at something data related to sales. So we are a company, we sell products across Africa. So we have Ghana and other countries in Africa. But then you are the one creating a dashboard, and then you're supposed to present to the continent director. It will be beneficial to give such a person the overall performance of the company. So you can talk about the number of products sold, the income, profit, and all that on from a global perspective. But then say you are presenting to the director of say Ghana, the Ghana section. You might want to drill down and talk about some products, some metrics within the country Ghana. So you can drill down and talk about the regions within Ghana. So if there are some parts that have to be improved, the audience can see that. So really, these are just from that one data set. We have two different dashboards. Different dashboards. Some elements in dashboard may be the same, but it has two different objectives because of the audience data. So the audience matters. Now we are going to have our hands-on session where we'll build a dashboard from scratch. But before that, I want us to talk about the data set we'll be using, which is on video game sales. So the data set contains a list of some video game sales along with some descriptive information. We'll find that it was taken from Kaggle, and then there's over 16,000 rows and 10 columns. And these are the columns or the fields. We have the name, which is the name of the game, the platform of the game's release. We see some examples, PC, PS4, and all that, Xbox and all that. The year that the game was released, the genre, whether it's action, whether it's sports, and all that. We have publisher of the game. And then we have some values here. We have NA sales. So it says the sales in North America in millions. And then we have the sales in Europe, the sales in Japan, and then other parts of the sales to other parts of the world. And then there's a sum of all the sales in these four different regions stated. So let's move on to our data set. Okay, so this is I'm going to share this file so those who want to follow along can do that. Just give me a minute so I can share the file. And it is a good idea to follow along even as we do it together. So we are able to have a hands-on experience for yourself, and anytime you need to reproduce it, it becomes simple for you. However, I'll recommend and advise that we not get too carried away and then we miss some of the steps. So if you are also if you are not close to your laptop or something and you like to note some points, that's a very good idea. The whole point is that everyone is on the same page. Okay, so I've shared the file. Okay, so going back to sharing my screen. Okay, okay, so we are back. So you already know about our data set. And then this is the data. Over 16,000 rows, 10 columns, name, platform, up to global sales. Now this in its raw format is recognized by Excel as a range, a data range. Even though we know tables have rows and columns, and we know, yes, there are rows here, there are columns here, it's not recognized as a table, it's just a range. And so you have to convert it to a table to be recognized by Excel. And you can do that simply by just clicking anywhere in your range. You do a Control A, you go to the Insert ribbon, and then there's table here. Then in the tables group, you just select table, and then this pops up. It says create table. It selects everything for you. And then there's this option here. My table has headers. If your table has headers, this should be checked, which is the default. So our headers are the name. So that's our column headers: name, platform, gear, genre, publisher, up to global sales. In a case where you have a particular data set without columns, then you need to uncheck this and say, okay, so that's all. Another procedure is you can just select anywhere the same way you would have done for the other one, but then just use the keyboard shortcut, which is Control T, and it achieves the same thing. Select the range, the same thing. My table has headers, so I make sure my table has headers, checkbox was checked, and then now we see that we have a table. And then there's one thing about naming your tables. You might have an instance where you have, say, 6 tables that you are working with. And then Excel automatically ascribes a name to any table, charts, and all that you produce. So we can see that, let me just click away. You can see that when I click into the table, click anywhere on the table, this tab pops up, which is the table design ribbon. And then under the properties group, you see table name. And Excel gave it this name, table 1. But this is not descriptive enough for me. In the case where I need to refer back to this table, I might not remember that this is the first table I created. So it's good practice to rename your table. Now call it video. Let's call it video games. So now this table is recognized by Excel as video games. Anytime I need to come back to this table, I can just call video games. Okay. And then one amazing thing about working with the table is that you're able to see the unique values in the table. You're able to sort, you're able to filter. So for example, let's look at the genre column. Clicking the drop down right at the right side of the genre column, we see that we have, even though we have over 16,000 rows, there are only about 13 genres. So it means all these 16,000 games, each one of them falls under one of these 13. And so let's say I want to see just sports games. I can just deselect this, select all box, and I want to just sports. I just check for sports, and then okay. So now everything in my table is sports. I can just clear the filter by the same process, the same drop down there, clear filter from genre. You can sort and all that. Okay. So we have our table named video games. Now I talked about defining objectives whenever you're producing a dashboard. Now this data is about sales of games in 4 regions, and then it also provides a global perspective. So we want to look at sales from okay, Carl, raise your hand, please. You can ask your question.
Okay. Um, Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, please, can you go over the table renaming again? Can you go over the process again?
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you.
So let me, from a point where you have a data, just a range, when it's not recognized as a table. So let me just convert to range. Then let me just change the formatting back to normal. Okay, so this is what we had from the beginning. It's just a range, it's not a table. But then I want it to be a table, so I can just select anywhere in a range, do a control T. My table has headers. It's asking me whether I have columns, and yes, I do have columns. Name up to global sales are not values, they are not rows. I want it to be my column, so this must be checked. Okay, and then automatically a table pops up. Now Excel assigns names automatically to anything we create. So in this case, table 2. And if you click anywhere, let me just click out of the table. This is what your interface is going to look like. But when you click anywhere in the table region, an auxiliary tab, a tab pops up or a ribbon pops up, which is known as the table design ribbon. Under that ribbon, we have the properties group where we have the table name. This is where you can just rename it. So we want it to be video games. So we don't want table 2. We want video games. So that's about renaming naming a table. I hope that's fine. Okay. So talking about the objectives, I was saying that we want to look at sales from a global perspective. This is how we've defined our objectives. So we want to look at, say, the sum of the total sales based on genre. So how much was generated from sports games, how much was generated from platform, from puzzle and all that. We want to see that. We want to see total sales by region. So out of North America, how much was generated? The same for Europe, Japan, and other parts of the world. How much was generated? Then you might also want to look at some time series analysis. We want to look at some metrics based on time. So globally, how have our sales been moving based on across the years? So from 19 something to 2000 and something, how have sales been moving? We also want to look at maybe the number of games that have been released. So how many games were released in 2000? Was it less than that released in 1999? Was it more than that released in 2016? We want to look at some analysis on the number of games released based on the years. And then we might also want to look at maybe the top 10 best-selling games. So the games that attracted the highest sales. Okay. And then you can do this manually. You can be doing some if, some Excel formulas. You can be doing is equal to sum if you set some conditions so that you're able to sum according to action games, sorry, or music or sports and all that. But Excel presents a more efficient way to do this, which is known as pivot tables. So a pivot table is a table of values, which are summary statistics or aggregations of groups of individual values from an extensive table. What this simply means is that you have a table. This is an extensive table. And then you say you want a different table. And in that table, you want, I hope you can see the side here. Okay. So you want maybe the different genres. And then you want sports, you want action, and then you want to get, and then up to the last one. And then you want the total sales. So you now you want the value, maybe it gave you 1,000, it gave you this, it gave you that. This is what you want. So you want to aggregate based on this. And that's what pivot tables help you to do very, very simply. So let's illustrate it and practicalize that. So you just need to select anywhere in your table range. And then you go to insert, the insert ribbon. The first option in the tables group is a pivot table. You have two options there, from table or range, or from external data source. We are working with a table, so it falls within this category, which is the default value. So I'll just click that, and then this is the name of our table, video games. Had I not renamed it, would have been table 2 or table 1. but then it's now video games. I know what table I'm creating a pivot table out of. So that helps when it comes to naming tables. And then do I want it it asked me whether I want it in a new worksheet or an existing worksheet. In my case, I want it in a new worksheet. If you already have a sheet where you want to paste it, then you can choose the existing worksheet. So I'll choose new worksheet, and then I have my sheet here. Now I'm going to name my sheet pivot tables because I want to document everything. I want to be organized with everything, which will in the long run come back to help me. So you understand that when we get to the end. So I spoke about genre, global sales based on genre. So I want global sales, this global sales. So I can just drag global sales from the pivot table fields to values. And then based on genre. So I can drag genre to rows or columns. In this case, let's say rows. So this is what the pivot table now looks like. So for action games, this amount was generated. For music or miscellaneous, this. For racing, this. Sports, this. And then one thing you can do after creating your pivot table is this is the default format. It comes as row labels and then it gives you the values. But how will I know that this is a genre column? Right now, we just drew it, so we know, but I may not know what it means later on. So you just go to the design with your cursor on anywhere in the pivot table. These two tabs should pop up. You just go to design under layout group, report layout, and then you choose tabular format. And that gives you this. And that is all. And then you have to name your pivot table too. So we are going to name it sales global, sales by genre. So let's do global by genre. And so I won't have it be named pivot table 1 or pivot table 2, but I have a defining. So anytime I need to refer back to it, it's simple for me. And then out of this, you can create a chart. You can go further by creating a chart. And then you do that by with the pivot anywhere in the pivot table selected. These two tabs should be active. In the pivot table analyze tab, you go to pivot charts. And then let's say I want a bar chart. So I just select bar. Okay. And then I want it to be how it's presented right now. You can't tell whether strategy is more than adventure and whether it's more than puzzle. So I want it to be sorted. All you need to do is to go to your pivot table in the home ribbon, editing group, the sort and filter there. So you choose whether smallest to largest or largest to smallest. So smallest to largest should give me this sorting. So straight away I know that action is leading. And really the previous format where it wasn't sorted, it makes it more difficult in trying to simplify this pivot table using a chart. You've made it more difficult because now the person has to be tracking which is higher than. So sorting helps a lot. So we have our first pivot table and chart, and then we can go ahead and create another one. So we're talking about, let's say, let's do some time analysis. So the global sales based on time across the years. So the same process, you select anywhere in the table, insert, pivot table. This time, not a new worksheet, but an existing one. So existing, I just click pivot table sheet here, and then location, I can just click the cell here, and then that's it. And then now I want global sales again. So global sales will go to values, but this time not genre, but years. And that will be my rules. And this is how it's presented. The same format. I want year and not row labels here. So I'll go to design. I'll go to report layout and choose tabular format. And then you can see from this tab, pivot table analyze tab, that the pivot table name under the properties, under the pivot table group is pivot table 9, which doesn't really help me, especially for the sake of referencing. So I'll rename that and I'll call it global sales by years. Yes. And then I can plot another visual from the another chart from this. So the same process, pivot chart. And because it's about time, I'm going to plot a line chart. I want the one with markers. So you just select the fourth one, markers. And then I have this. So initially we had this data, and it gave us metrics about the global sales based on the yearly observation. But then we're not able to know which year was higher than which year was lower and all that. But then right from plotting this one, we're able to see that sales increased from 1980 to 1981. It dropped a little to 1983. And then it kept playing around, rising, rising, rising. And then we see that somewhere around 2008 was the highest. And then there was a drastic drop to 2020. So straight away, at a glance, this is a message I've received. And that's what makes visual communication exciting. So now we have a total sales based on years. So let's look at the count. Let's look at the count of games, the number of games released each year. And then I can go through the same process of going back to the data, insert, or you can just copy any of your already created pivot tables. You copy from the beginning, that's the header, to the grand total, to the end. And then you control C. I'll just go down where I want to paste it. Control V here. Now just uncheck this. And I have a new pivot table. And I want, based on years, I want the number of games released. And then in this particular data set, the name, which is the name of the game, is a unique value. There are no repeated games. And so each row represents one game. Remember, for the platform, we can have one platform releasing several games. So what we mean is that platform repeats itself along several rows. Yes, the same thing. We can have several games released in a year. We can have several games belonging to a particular genre or publisher. But then for the name of the game is one. If it's FIFA 19, it's different from FIFA 20, it's different from in that order. So the name is unique. And so I'm going to send name to values so that it will give me a count. Now, this is the default. You realize that for this one, it gave us some here too. In the case where you want to change this, all you need to do is in your pivot table field here, you just click this arrow, the arrow here, and then under value field settings, you should be able to change it to any statistic you are looking for. Okay. In this case, we want it to be count, but then it says count of name, which is really what we did. We counted the name field, but what we really wanted to do is to count the games. So I have to rename this to make it more descriptive to help me. So I'll just double click this and then change it to count of games. And then that's that. And then we have to remember to name everything. So this will be, instead of pivot table 10, we'll do it count, so games by year. The naming is up to you, and it should be something that you can understand. And then out of this, we'll make another chart, another line chart, because it's about time. One with markers. Okay. And then the global sales, the trend in the global sales is very similar to that in the count. So looking at this, you might think what happened, and then the sales just kept dropping. But then we see that there's a corresponding drop in the number of games released across those years. That's insightful. So how many visuals do we have? We have 1, 2, 3 charts. Okay, so let's do 2 more. We can talk about say total sales by region. Okay, or we can even do count of games. Okay, let's do the total sales by region, where the regions are North America, Europe, Japan, and then other parts of the world. So looking at our table here, now let's follow along with this part, especially because it can get tricky. So the years here that we see, 2006, 2008, are values in this table. The text year, YEAR, is a column header. So I'm able to easily do some statistics based on years. And then the values 2006, 2013, all that, they are values in the tables, not columns. 2006 doesn't have its own column. Then 2007, 8, 9 in that order. But in this case, the sales, NA, North America, Europe, Japan, other parts of the world, global, have their own columns. They are not represented as values. So let's see what's going to happen if we try to look at sales based on North America, Europe, Japan, and other parts of the world. Let's see what happens. So let's do insert, the same process, pivot table, existing worksheet, go to the worksheet you want. Let's go to the bottom and just anywhere, and then okay. Now we want, first of all, we know we want global sales, but this time based on the regions. Intuitively, you might want to drag this to rows, but then let's see what happens when we do that. It gives you every value in that column, every unique value in that column, and which is not really what we want. If you do the same for EU, dragging it even extends it further, and that is not what we want. So let's see a way around this. A way around this is that you want to select North America, Europe, Japan, and other parts of the world, the sales for these 4 regions, because this is what we really want to look at. There's total sales across the various regions. And then pivot table gives you an automatic way of doing this. But then in this case, we'll have to employ some manual inputs. So I can say that this is my region. So I have North America, short NA, I have EU, I have JP, and then other parts of the world. And then I want my total sales. Total sales. I can just reference this value here, reference this here in that order. So I can just do equal to, and in this pivot table, sum of the value for sum of any sales, enter, it gives me that. The same for this Europe, it gives me that. The same for Japan, and then other. And so the pivot table was only able to help me at a point, up to a point. And then from here, I didn't rename this pivot table. So let me name this pivot table and call it regional sales. And then I want this to be a table. And then I'll name it, let's say sales by region. And then based on this, what the pivot table couldn't do for me automatically, I'm now able to do it. I just go to insert. This is not a pivot table. So realize the pivot table analyze tab didn't pop up. So I'll just go to insert a chart. I want a pie chart. You can check out recommended charts and see what it will give you. In my case, I want a pie chart. So I'll just select pie, the first one. Okay. And there I have it. So you can apply further formatting to this. You can decide to add data labels. In a case where you want to do some advanced formatting on the data labels, just the arrow here by the data labels, go to more options. I don't want the value, I want a percentage. So percentage, and I don't want it in here, I want it outside. So outside, so you can play around this and then you're able to find what works best for you. And then let's rename it and say total sales by region. And then let's not forget to name. Okay, did we name the table? Yes, it's named. Okay, so that's fine. So we now have 4 different charts. We have total sales by region. We have count of games across the years. We have sum of total sales across the years. And then we have sales by genre. So let me rename everything so we don't get lost. So total sales by genre. And then we have, let's call this the global trend sales. We usually use the word trend when we're talking about time. So trend should be fine for us in sales. Okay, then we have, let's say, trend in count of games. It should be fine. Okay. And then, okay, this already. Then let's get our last visual, which will be the, let's say, top 10 best-selling games. So I'm just going to insert a pivot table, existing worksheet, pivot tables, select, and then I want the count of games, the top 10 selling games, sorry. And that's based on global sales. What metric am I using to identify my global sales? It's my top 10 best-selling games is the global sales. So I'll just drag that to values. And then remember, it's the name field that contains the respective games, individual games. So I'll drag that to rows. You can see that this list extends on and on and on and on and on because it's over 16,000. But I just want the first 10. So in this, let me first rename it, do our usual ritual where we rename everything. So this is this should be global. No, let's make it top 10 games. Okay. And then go to design, report layout, show tabular, so I can see that is the name of my game. And then I want just the 10, just the first 10. So in this drop down, right at the right side of the name header, you have label filters, you have value filters. The label filters will filter based on these labels, this text we see here. And then the value filters will filter based on these values. Now, and then under this drop down, we have top 10. So that's what we want. And then we have, okay, so top 10 items based on sum of global sales. In some pivot tables, you might have more than one value. So let me demonstrate that. Let's say we have, in this same pivot table, we have global sales, and then we have, maybe we wanted to compare it to NA sales. So we have two different metrics, but I want to sort based on global sales. It will be the same process, values, top 10, but in this case, you have the choice to choose whether it's which of your values. So in this case, we want global sales. So that should be checked. And then, okay. Okay, so I'm going to check this out just for demonstration. And then we have our top 10 games. So we can plot. I'm going to choose a bar chart. Remember, we have to sort it to make things easy visually. So go to the home ribbon and then sort. And then there we have it. Let's call it top 10 best selling games. Okay. And then was the pivot. Okay. It's already labeled. So now we have our 5 visuals that we want to display on our dashboard. So remember, before we started doing this, we set out our objective that we want to look at things from a global perspective. So you realize that we're making use of global, global, global. This is not always the case. You might want to look at things from a different perspective, presenting to the Japan manager. You might want to drill down and talk about metrics relating to Japan sales. So your objective must be clearly defined. So I'm going to create a new sheet and call it dashboard. Where we create our dashboard. Now, let me check if there are any questions. Okay, no questions. Okay, so going on. Now you want to, usually before creating a dashboard, you envision how you want your dashboard to look like. So let's say in my case, I want this highlighted region to have my heading. So maybe I want to say video game sale analysis. That will be the caption, my heading. You can just decide to draw it on a piece of paper. You can also do Control Shift 7 just to have a wireframe. What Control Shift, the keyboard shortcut Control Shift 7 is, it just adds a border to where you select. So I don't know if you can see it, but there's a border around where I highlighted. So I know that straight away, this is where I want to put my header. You can also decide to say, maybe you display a certain card here or something that will talk about, that will have contain a figure, one figure, maybe global, the sum of sales globally. Then you want another one here that will talk about Japan sales in that order. You can decide to do your wireframe, a sketch of how you want your things to look like. So I said I want here to be the header. So I'm just going to merge and center here in the alignment group home ribbon. And then I'll say video game sales analysis. Okay. Video game sales analysis. I want it to be centered and a little bit bigger. Okay. And let's say I want the background to be this color and the text to be white. I want something like this. So straight away, I've done that. And then I want maybe a card, something to tell me that this is the total global sales. So I can just employ the use of shapes. So you go to the insert ribbon and then under shapes, illustrations group, shapes. I can just choose maybe, you can choose anything. Let's say I want rounded rectangle, and then you just manually draw it. You just manually draw it, and then you can just click on it, and then you can start typing. So I want total global sales. And then maybe that, let's say that is 8. Let me look at that. Total global sales was, okay, 8820. So sum of global sales, it gives you the grand total, 8820.36. 8820. 8820.36 dollars. And there we have it. So I want this to be centered and increase it a little. So I want something like this to be here. And I want similar cards. One to talk about any Europe in that order. So I can just click on the card I've already created and do a Control D, keyboard shortcut Control D to duplicate it. And then I want one here that will talk about maybe the number of games released. So total number of games. And then that's a little over 16,000. So I think it's 16,327. So straight away, I know that these are the number of games I'm dealing with. And then I want another one that will talk about NA sales. I want another one that will talk about Europe. Let me make this NA. NA. And I want Europe. I'd want Japan, and I want other parts of the world. So we have 6 of them in total. Japan, other parts of the world with their corresponding values. So maybe if, okay, so we have the NA was 433. Okay, so let me just quickly drop them there. NA is 433. So we have 433.43. Then I think Europe was 2402.12 or so. Japan was 1284.3. And then the last was 700 and something. Let's see, 789. And then this is what I want them to be aligned. Imagine the hassle of having to align this manually and ensuring Excel provides, once again, an efficient way to do that. So I can just select all. So hold down Control in your keyboard, select all your cards. In the tab that pops up, which is the Shape Format tab, in the Arrange group, there's Align. Clicking on the drop down, you want to align the top. So all the top edges of the cards will be aligned. So this is what we get. And then now, how about the spacing? I want it to be evenly spaced. The same process, align, but this time distribute horizontally. If the cards were stacked vertically, then I'll choose distribute vertically. So this provides a very simple way to do this. And straight away, I'm sure we can see our dashboard being built. So now let's bring our visuals here, the charts we created. So let me rename this sheet to pivot tables and charts since it contains charts also. Okay, so I'm going to select all my charts. Just Control C. I don't want to cut them, and I'll just paste. Okay, so that's that. That's that. And then see, I want this to be here. Then I want the pie chart to be somewhere at the top there. Let's say I want it to be right by the one I created. Okay, here is it. I want it to be somewhere here. Then I want one of the time series plots to be somewhere here. I want the other one to be right by it. This, you know, this based on exploring or based on the wireframe that you've already, the format, the sketch that you've already defined. And then I want the last one to be right under there. Straight away, we can see our dashboard coming together. You can perform a lot of formatting techniques that will align what we have here. You can align just the way we did that one. So you can say align, select this, hold down, Control, select this, and you want the tops to be aligned. The same process, align top, and it will be aligned. You can also work on the shape dimension. So let's say I want this to be in the format tab, the formats remain here. Size, you can modify it here. So you can make sure that everything is the same. So you can select maybe these two, and then you want them to be of the same dimension. You have liberty to do that. You have complete liberty to do that. And it's as simple as that. So you ensure consistency. So I want them to be like this. So now they are the same size, they are aligned. You can do that to the two other visuals, and there you have it. Now, these buttons that we see here, the sum of global sales, the genre, sum of this is what you get when you plot a graph of a pivot table. It's going to come this way, but you might not want it to appear this way. So you just have to make sure that you right click this and uncheck. Right click this, and then you do hide all field buttons. These are called field buttons. So you just hide them all, and then it's hidden. Same here, hide them all. Hide them all. And then for the last one, I'll just hide them all. And then let's say I wanted to see the exact figures. I wanted to apply some formatting to this already existing chart. So I want data labels. So now I know that sales from action games was a little over 17,700. And then since I have these figures, I don't need these ranges here. So I can go to the drop down arrow right by axis, uncheck. This is the horizontal, so primary horizontal. Maybe I don't want grid lines. I don't want a legend because just telling me total doesn't help me. You can work on colors and all that. And you can have how your visuals, you can have your visuals looking how you want them to look. Now, there's one thing I want us, which will be the last thing we'll talk about is known as a slicer. What the slicer is really is a filter. What that means is that you have these graphs here. Let's say you want a total sales generated from maybe action movies, but not okay. So first of all, let me rename this. The data set contains data from 1980 to 2020. Let's say you want just 2000, the year 2000. This is giving you everything. So one feature that can help you achieve this is a slicer. So I'll go back to, you can insert this on this particular chart. On this particular chart, you just go to pivot chart, analyze, insert slicer. It's called a slicer. So pivot chart, analyze. Let me redo it. You select the chart, pivot chart, analyze tab, filter group, slicer. And then I want based on year. So I just check the year box and say, okay. And then this is what I get. So now let's see what happens when I select maybe 2000. 2000. You realize that the metrics change. Initially, action was leading by a little over 1,700. In the year 2000, however, sports led in sales. So you're able to drill down and narrow your elements. And you can do this for everything. You can do this for even the cards. So that's one somewhat advanced feature that makes building dashboards in Excel fun and very informative. And so let me set one more slicer, maybe based on maybe the platform. Okay, let's talk about the platform. Okay. And then the same thing happens. So maybe I want SAT platform, games release, SAT platform, maybe 1995. So you're able to narrow down to the barest minimum of what you are looking for based on how you design your dashboard. And so in this case, you see that my dashboard is looking like, when properly aligned, my dashboard will be looking like I have my header, my cards, I have my global, my charts talking about global metrics. I have some filters. At a glance, I'm able to know how the sales in video games have done overall between 1980 and 2020. And that's that. If you want to set a focus on your dashboard, you can just go to the view tab and then you can uncheck grid lines. I don't want the grid lines. So I can just uncheck the grid lines. I can uncheck the formula bar, the heading, and just click this arrow at the right hand side here. And then I have a focus on my dashboard. So I'm going to show you, this is about building the dashboard and looking at some of the techniques employed in building dashboard. I'm going to show you a dashboard that I built using the same data. And it's pretty much looking at things from a global perspective, just with some additional visuals, such as the total sales by platform and top 10 best-selling games. Now, anyone who takes this can drill down. Maybe you want 1984. You're able to drill down and tell me what happened in 1984 for all the visuals or those that have been connected. You're able to do this with genre, do that for platform. And so it's in that case, it's interactive, and then the person the person using the dashboard has all the metrics they need. Now, talking about connections, initially I had to, let me go back to that one. In creating the slicer, I had to select the chart and then do pivot chart, analyze, insert slicer. Does it mean you have to insert for every chart? No, that's not what it means. When you build one slicer, you can easily connect other charts. So what you do is select the slicer. Let me check this if there's any question. Okay, no question. That's fine. So you select a slicer, you go to slicer, the slicer tab that pops up, and then under slicer group here, there's report connections. So this is where naming your pivot tables and charts come into play. Let's assume we didn't name them and it was pivot table something, pivot table 2, pivot table 10. We wouldn't know what to connect, and you might not want to connect everything. So now that we've named it, we are able to easily connect. Let's say you want to connect top 10 games. And then let me even connect let me connect the trend. Okay. Okay. So what I did was to connect two additional charts. That's the top 10 best-selling games and then the regional sales. So let's see what happens when I now check the year. Initially, just this chart, this first chart was moving. But now when I select this, we see that top 10 selling games and then this pie chart. Let me zoom out a little bit so we're able to see. I'm going to select it again. Take a look at this and then take note of these two charts. Those are the two I connected. So I'll just come to my year, the 1980. I see what happens with total sales by region. I see that the top 10 best-selling games in 1980 was not the same as the top 10 selling games from 1980 to 2020, or it's different in 1984. If you want to look at multiple years at a go, you can check this. Let me zoom back in. You can check this button here, which enables multi-selection. So you check it, and then I want 1982 and 1984. So I just select that, and then it gives me that. Yes, so that's about the slicer. Then going back to what has been built, you realize that everything is interactive. The count of the games, global, other sales, and all that, they are all interactive. They all change based on the given year. So just looking at, if I'm someone who is interested on looking at the sales from a global perspective, sales of video games from the global perspective, this dashboard does justice. I don't need to go to the data and now be looking through and all that to be finding. This dashboard does that. And that's the purpose of a dashboard, to communicate. Remember, we said it's to communicate some important metrics. What's here is important to us is a global sales. If you are presenting to the manager in Japan, you remember I spoke about that, you might build a different dashboard from the same data. And so let me go back to the slide and finish up on something. Any questions will be addressed very soon. Let me just finish off on this. Okay. So some common mistakes that have to do that can be play when you're building the dashboard is that you can over prioritize aesthetics at the expense of objectives. So it's easy to go overboard and you want to add these elements because it looks nice, but then it should not affect the objectives. And then inappropriate use of charts. Now let's assume we had, let me demonstrate this quickly. Let's assume we wanted to visualize this global trend in sales and we use the pie chart. Let's try that and see what. Oh, no, the pivot table is already created. Okay, so pivot table analyze pivot chart, and I want a pie chart. This is what I'm going to get. This unanimously is not helpful. Even with the legend, there are so many colors, and at this point the text is even better. And so in this case, in trying to achieve one of the cons of visual communication, which is the content is easier and faster to grasp, you've complicated the matter. And so the visuals you use must be appropriate. And then noisy elements, yes, some elements might be distracted, even though you might want to add them to your dashboard. It might be distracted. We talk about the dashboard not being tailored to a specific audience. Now imagine the same dashboard and you present it to the manager for North America. It doesn't really help him to tackle issues in North America. And so it's not tailored to him. And that doesn't really help. And then best practices, you have to define clear objectives, which we know. You have to know your audience scope, which is spoken about. You have to keep it simple and focused. Once you have an objective, it won't be difficult to keep it simple and focused. Without an objective, you will not know, because there's so much there are so many visuals that you can generate from just this data. And I'll show you that shortly. And then you have to balance aesthetics with functionality. Now, the last thing I want you to remember is that there's no one size fits all approach. Every dashboard comes with its unique features, what you might want to achieve. And then one also key point is about organizing your workflow. And so in this case, I had my pivot tables in one sheet. And then I was making analysis based on some five fields, that's the genre, the year, the platform, the publisher, and then the and then any other. So in this pivot table section, every pivot table relating to metrics that have to do with the genre, whether it's action or adventure and all that, are all here. And so I can easily refer to them and they are all named. The same for year, everything that has to do with year. So if I want to plot something for Japan, I can easily come here and do that. The same for platform, the same for publisher. And then when you go to the charts, it's the same thing. All my charts relating to genre are plotted, all that's relating to year, all that's relating to platform. And really, this helps you. You might not be presenting this. It's not even you might not. You will not present this on one dashboard, but then this helps you to keep a structured workflow, and then you're able to meet any objectives. So if one tip, this is a free bottle. If you are supposed to build a dashboard and then you build it for the global view, looking at the global perspective, and then now you have to build one for North America. You already have what you need. So all you need to do is just go to what you already have and then present it. Yes, and that's for building a dashboard in Microsoft Excel. Please, were there any of us who were following along, maybe trying to do it on our PCs? I want to know if there were any such, and then if there were any issues you encountered while drawing, while building the dashboard. And then if there are any questions regarding what we just done, if there some parts you didn't quite get, you can feel free to ask. You can drop it in the chat window and then you can feel free to ask. Let me check if okay. So well, maybe some people are typing their questions. So I'm going to hand over to Frank, who will come and brief us shortly. If Frank, are you around?
All right, thank you very much, Michael. This has been interesting, taking us from getting data into Microsoft Excel, creating the table, and having to build this dashboard. That this has been very interesting and educative for me. Is anyone here who is a total beginner to Microsoft Excel? Anyone at all who is a complete beginner? Okay, looks like some of us already know Excel. Uh, I believe we all picked a thing or two from this session with Michael, and having to build dashboards and making it interactive, and how you can connect your slices to the different charts in your dashboard. Now, this is a taste of what you are going to get if you actually sign up with DataSync. Now, this presentation, this particular training is brought to you by DataSync. Now, with DataSync, we are looking at bridging that gap between people who are looking at transitioning into the data space and those who are already there. Now, we're not leaving those already in the data space out of this, right? Our goal is to also upskill those who are already in the data space, looking to advance their skills and knowledge in data analysis. Now, our courses ranges from Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Power BI, SQL, SQL, there's Python programming, there's Tableau as well, right? So for every need you have, any need at all regarding data analytics, if you're looking at joining a training, you need help with your projects, you can always reach out to DataSyncs. Socials will be shared with you via WhatsApp. I mean, a group link was shared in the chat. You can still find it there in the chat. So all our information are going to be shared via social media and our WhatsApp page, right? So that will be shared with you. Now, today's recording, like I've been saying in the chat, will be shared via our WhatsApp group. So please do all to join the group, and then you have the access to our recording. Right. No one raised their hands for any questions for Michael. And Michael would like to say thank you for taking us through this particular session. This has been insightful. And if you don't have any questions at all from anyone, we are going to call it a day. And let me say a thank you to every single one of you for joining today's session. We are going to have another free masterclass, which is happening next week, Saturday. That's the 28th of September. That is going to be on Microsoft Power BI. So if you are new to Power BI, if you have some experience, please do join our session happening next week, Saturday. Yep. Carl, I see your hand up.
Yes, yes, yes. So good afternoon once again, and also
Yeah.
good evening once again. And I'd like to say a very big thank you to Michael for taking us through this, and also to data
Yeah.
and for making this available for us, and also taking us through this beautiful course. So my question is, if I want to enter into the data analytics space, um, do you okay, let me put it in a in a more friendly manner. How much how much are you looking at if I want to enroll for the whole course, the data analytics whole course?
Okay. So we are going to do this off our recorded session. So we're going to end our recording here for
Oh,
today's
okay.
training so we can have access to the whole recording, right? So thank you for joining Data Sync. Bye-bye, everyone.